I've seen glitz, glamour, and the kind of secrets that make your jaw drop. Masks in the light. I've been trimming hedges and tending gardens for the rich folks of Los Angeles for years now. Bel Air, Hollywood Hills, you name it. I've seen the insides of their lives through their manicured lawns and floor-to-ceiling windows. They don't notice me much, which is fine. A gardener's supposed to be invisible, like a ghost who keeps the roses blooming and the grass green. But I see everything. The fights, the whispers, the deals made over glasses of bourbon. I don't gossip though, never have. Maybe it's the Marine in me. Keep your head down, observe, and move on. But this one family, the Warrens, their story stuck with me. It's the kind of mess that makes you question what family even means. It started in the fall, just before Halloween. I was working at Kevin Warren's estate in Bel Air, a sprawling modern mansion with a view of the city that could make you forget the smog. Kevin's the older brother, about 40, the kind of guy who made millions in venture capital before most people figure out what they're doing with their lives. He's got this quiet intensity, like he's always calculating the next move, but there's a softness to him when it comes to his family. I'd see him on the patio, talking to his niece Victoria with this big smile, or wiring money to his brother Quinn without a second thought. Kevin's the guy who keeps the lights on for everyone else, and they know it. Quinn, his younger brother, is 35, all charm and sharp edges. He's the kind of guy who walks into a room and owns it, flashing a grin that makes you want to believe whatever he's selling. And he's selling something, all right, a cryptocurrency startup called Quantum Coin. It's all anyone talks about at these fancy parties Kevin throws. Quantum Coin, this, blockchain, that. I don't pretend to understand it, but I know Quinn's got investors eating out of his hand, and Kevin's the one footing most of the bill. I overheard Quinn once laughing with some suit by the pool saying, "Kevin's my golden goose. As long as he's got cash, I've got a future. Didn't sit right with me, but I kept my clippers moving." Quinn's wife, Ruby, is a former Instagram influencer, 33, with the kind of beauty that makes you look twice. She's quieter than you'd expect, though always hovering on the edges of the parties, sipping wine and watching Quinn like she's trying to solve a puzzle. Their daughter, Victoria, is 10, a sweet kid with big eyes who loves running through the garden, asking me about the flowers. I'd tell her about the jacarandas or the birds of paradise, and she'd listen like it was the most important thing in the world. Ruby would watch us from the terrace, a faint smile on her face, but there was always something heavy in her eyes, like she was carrying a secret she wasn't ready to share. Then there's Liam and Sophia, Kevin and Quinn's parents. Liam's 68, a retired real estate tycoon who still talks like he's closing deals in the 80s. Sophia, 65, is the picture of a Bel Air matriarch, elegant, always dressed like she's heading to a gala, but with this nervous energy, like she's afraid of rocking the boat. They live a few miles away in another mansion Kevin probably paid for, but they're always at his place, especially when Quinn's around. Liam's got a soft spot for Quinn, calls him the dreamer, while Sophia just nods along, avoiding any real conflict. That Halloween party was when I first noticed the cracks. Kevin's estate was decked out, pumpkins carved like modern art, fairy lights strung across the garden, a DJ spinning tracks that echoed off the hills. Hollywood types and tech bros mingled, sipping cocktails served by waiters in black vests. I was pruning the bougainvillea near the patio when I heard Quinn's voice cut through the music. He was talking to some guy in a tailored blazer, probably an investor. "Quantum Coin's about to blow up," Quinn said, all swagger. "We're talking billions, man. Kevin's got us covered for the next round." The guy nodded, impressed, but then Quinn leaned in, his voice dropping. "My brother's good for it. Always is. Thinks he's saving the family or some crap." They laughed, and I felt my grip tighten on the shears. Something about the way Quinn said it, like Kevin was just a tool, made my stomach turn. I glanced at Kevin across the lawn. He was talking to Victoria, showing her how to carve a pumpkin, his laugh genuine but tired. Ruby stood nearby, her arms crossed, watching Quinn work the crowd. She caught my eye for a second, and I swear there was something pleading in her look, like she wanted to say something but couldn't. I went back to my work, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this family was a powder keg waiting for a spark. Over the next few weeks, I kept my routine, mowing, trimming, planting, but the tension at the Warren estate was thicker than the morning fog. Kevin was pouring money into Quantum Coin, and I'd hear him on calls, stressed, talking about scaling issues and investor confidence. Quinn, meanwhile, was always on his phone, posting about the startup on social media, hyping it up like it was the next Bitcoin. Ruby started spending more time in the garden, asking me random questions about the plants, like she was looking for an excuse to stay out of the house. One day, she lingered while I was mulching the rose beds. "You ever get tired of all this?" she asked, gesturing vaguely at the mansion. I shrugged. "It's just a job, pays the bills." She nodded, but her eyes were distant. "Must be nice to have a life that's yours," she said, almost to herself. I didn't know what to say, so I just kept working. Victoria would come out sometimes, too, dragging a sketchbook to draw the flowers. "Uncle Kevin says you're a hero," she told me once. "Out of nowhere. Says you were in the Marines." I chuckled, brushing it off. "Your uncle's got a big imagination, kid." But she kept going, telling me how Kevin always talked about family sticking together, how he was paying for her school and her ballet lessons. "Dad says Uncle Kevin's the best," she said, and I nodded, but I couldn't help thinking about Quinn's golden goose comment. Kids don't see the knives behind the smiles. By early December, Kevin was in full holiday mode, planning a big Christmas bash. I'd see delivery trucks rolling in with decorations, wreaths, lights, even a 12-foot tree for the living room. He was excited, talking about gifts he'd picked out, a vintage Steinway piano for Sophia, a rare bottle of Bordeaux for Liam, and a trust fund loaded with stocks for Victoria. I caught him one afternoon unloading boxes of wrapped presents from his car. "Big holiday this year," he said, grinning. "Gonna make it special for everyone." I nodded, but something felt off. Quinn was around less, always at meetings for Quantum Coin, but when he was there, he'd needle Kevin with little jabs. "Nice car, bro," he said one day, eyeing Kevin's new Tesla. "Guess you're too busy spending on yourself to help me out with the next round, huh?" Kevin laughed it off, but I could see the strain in his eyes. The day before Christmas Eve, I was finishing up some late pruning when I heard raised voices from the house. I was near the open patio doors, so I caught most of it. Quinn was pacing, his voice sharp. "You're holding out on me, Kev? Quantum Coin needs another $1 million to seal this deal, and you're out here buying pianos? What's the deal, man?" Kevin's voice was calm but firm. "I've given you plenty, Quinn. 10 million this year alone. Maybe it's time you figure out how to make it work." Liam chimed in, his tone weak. "Now, Kevin, don't be selfish. Quinn's got a vision." Sophia said nothing, just sipped her wine, her eyes darting between them. Ruby was there, too, silent, her hands clasped tight in her lap. I kept my head down, but I could feel the storm brewing. That night, I got a call from Kevin's assistant, asking me to come by early the next day to help set up for the Christmas party. I showed up at dawn, expecting the usual holiday chaos, caterers, decorators, the works. But when I got there, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Kevin's car was gone, and the decorations were half unpacked, like someone had given up halfway. I found Ruby in the garden, sitting on a bench, staring at the fountain. She looked like she hadn't slept. "He's not coming," she said, her voice flat. "Who?" I asked, though I already knew. "Kevin. They told him not to come for Christmas." Quinn said, "He said Kevin's too selfish to be part of the family." She laughed, bitter. "Can you believe that? After everything he's done?" I didn't say anything, just kept raking the leaves. But inside, I was boiling. I'd seen a lot in my time on the battlefield, in these mansions, but this was something else. Kevin had been carrying this family on his back, and now they were kicking him out. I thought about Quinn, all his talk about Quantum Coin, the way he strutted around like he was untouchable. I thought about Ruby, stuck in the middle, and Victoria, who just wanted her family to be happy. And I thought about my own life, the promises I'd seen broken, the people I'd trusted who turned out to be snakes. I didn't know what was coming next for the Warrens, but I knew one thing: this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The illusion of wealth. The days after that Christmas Eve bombshell felt like the calm before a storm, is coming. I kept working at Kevin Warren's Bel Air estate, trimming hedges, watering the jacarandas, but the air around the place was heavy, like the whole mansion was holding its breath. Kevin didn't show up after being banned from the family Christmas, and I could tell it wasn't just a one-off fight. I'd seen families unravel before. Rich ones, poor ones, doesn't matter. But this one was different. It was like watching a house of cards wobble, each move threatening to bring it all down. As a former Marine, I learned to spot trouble before it hit, and the Warrens were neck deep in it. Quinn was around more, strutting through the estate like he owned it, always on his phone, barking about Quantum Coin. His cryptocurrency startup was all he talked about. Meetings with investors, some big Series B funding round, promises of disrupting the market. I didn't know much about crypto, but I knew a hustler when I saw one. Quinn's charm was bulletproof, but there was something desperate in his eyes, like he was running from something. He'd flash that $1 million smile at Ruby or Victoria, but it never reached his eyes. I caught him one morning by the pool, yelling into his phone at some guy named Oliver, his financial director. "Get the numbers cleaned up, Oliver. I don't care how. Just make it look good for the investors." He didn't see me raking leaves nearby, but I heard it all. Cleaned up numbers? That's the kind of talk that gets you in trouble. Ruby was unraveling in her own way. She'd spend hours in the garden, pretending to check on the roses or ask me about soil pH, but I knew she was avoiding the house. One afternoon, while I was planting new lavender, she sat on a bench nearby, staring at her hands. "You ever feel like you're trapped in someone else's life?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I kept my eyes on the dirt. "Sometimes," I said, "but you don't get out of a trap by staying still." She looked at me, surprised, like she didn't expect me to have an opinion. Then she nodded slow, like she was chewing on the thought. "I just want Victoria to have a chance, not this circus." I didn't push her to say more. People like Ruby don't spill their guts to the gardener unless they're ready, and she wasn't there yet. Victoria, though, was the one who broke my heart. She'd still come out to the garden, her sketchbook tucked under her arm, but her chatter about flowers had dried up. One day, she sat cross-legged on the grass while I pruned the hedges, drawing in silence. "Is Uncle Kevin mad at us?" she asked, not looking up. I stopped clipping. "Why'd you think that, kid?" She shrugged, her pencil scratching the paper. "He didn't come for Christmas. Dad said it's because Uncle Kevin doesn't care anymore." I bit back what I wanted to say about her dad. "Your uncle's got a lot on his plate," I said instead. "Sometimes people need space to sort things out." She nodded, but I could tell she didn't buy it. Kids always know when something's wrong, even if they don't have the words for it. Kevin's absence was like a ghost haunting the estate. The Christmas decorations stayed up longer than they should have, half taken down wreaths and lights tangled in boxes, like nobody had the heart to finish the job. I heard from one of the maids that Kevin had called Liam and Sophia, trying to patch things up, but they'd brushed him off. Liam, with his old money arrogance, probably thought Kevin was overreacting. Sophia, always dodging conflict, likely just changed the subject. Quinn, though, was the one pulling the strings. I overheard him one evening talking to Liam by the fireplace while I swept the patio. "Kevin's got his priorities screwed up, Dad," Quinn said, his voice smooth as silk. "Buying that new place in the hills instead of helping me with Quantum Coin. He's turning his back on us." Liam mumbled something about family duty, and I had to stop myself from snorting. Duty? Quinn was bleeding Kevin dry, and everyone was too blind or too weak to call it what it was. By early January, things got weirder. I was mulching the flower beds when a sleek black SUV pulled up, and out stepped Tessa, Ruby's friend and a lawyer with a reputation for taking no prisoners. I'd seen her at a few of Kevin's parties, always sharp, always watching. She didn't come to socialize this time. She and Ruby disappeared into the guest house for over an hour, and when they came out, Ruby's face was pale, her hands shaking as she clutched a folder. Tessa gave me a quick nod as she left, like she knew I'd seen more than I'd let on. I didn't ask questions, but I noticed Ruby started spending more time on her phone, texting furiously, her eyes darting around like she was expecting someone to jump out of the bushes. Then there was Oliver, Quinn's financial guy. He showed up one afternoon, looking like he hadn't slept in a week, his tie loose and his eyes bloodshot. I was cleaning the fountain when he cornered Quinn on the terrace. "The investors are asking questions," Quinn, Oliver hissed, low enough that he thought no one could hear. "Those offshore transfers aren't invisible. You need to tell me what's going on." Quinn laughed, but it was forced, like he was trying to keep the upper hand. "Relax, Oliver. It's under control. Kevin's got us covered, and the numbers will look fine by the next meeting." Oliver didn't seem convinced, muttering something about cleaning up your mess before storming off. I kept my head down, but my gut told me Quantum Coin wasn't the gold mine Quinn was selling. It was a house of cards, just like this family. The real kicker came mid-January. I was hauling bags of soil to the garden when I saw Kevin's Tesla pull into the driveway. My first thought was relief. Maybe he was back to fix things. But when he got out, his face was hard, like he'd aged 10 years since I last saw him. He didn't notice me as he marched up to the house carrying a stack of wrapped Christmas presents, probably the ones he'd meant to give before they kicked him out. I stayed close to the patio, pretending to weed, but I could hear everything through the open doors. "What the hell is this, Quinn?" Kevin's voice was low, controlled, but there was an edge to it. "You told Mom and Dad I'm selfish? After everything I've done for you? 10 million this year, Quinn. 10 million. And you're out here saying I'm not doing enough?" Quinn didn't miss a beat. "You're the one who bought that new house, Kev. And that Tesla. Meanwhile, Quantum Coin's on the verge of something huge, and you're holding out. What kind of brother does that?" I could practically hear Kevin's jaw clench. "I'm not your ATM, Quinn. I've paid for your kids' school, your house, your damn lifestyle. Maybe it's time you figure out how to stand on your own." Liam's voice cut in, weak but firm. "Now, Kevin, don't be like that. Quinn's got a vision. We're family," Sophia added, her voice shaky. "You could have helped a little more, Kevin. It's not like you're hurting for money." I stopped weeding, my hands frozen in the dirt. They were ganging up on him, all three of them, like vultures circling a carcass. Ruby was there, too, silent as always, but I caught a glimpse of her through the window. Her face was flushed, her hands twisting in her lap. For a second, I thought she might say something, stand up for Kevin, but she just looked down, like she was trying to disappear. Kevin didn't yell, didn't lose it. He just said, "If that's how you feel, I'm done." And then he walked out, leaving the presents on the floor. I watched him get in his car, his shoulders slumped, and drive off. The bags of gifts sat there, untouched, like a reminder of everything that was broken. Later that day, I was packing up my tools when Ruby came out to the garden. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there, staring at the presents through the window. "He didn't deserve that," she finally said, her voice cracking. I didn't look up. "Most people don't deserve what they get," I said, keeping it neutral. She turned to me, her eyes searching. "You see a lot, don't you? Working here, I mean." I shrugged. "Enough." She hesitated, then said, "I found something. About Quinn. Something bad." She didn't elaborate, and I didn't push, but I knew she was talking about those offshore transfers Oliver mentioned. Whatever she'd found, it was big enough to scare her. The next week, I got a call from Tessa. Not sure how she got my number, but she didn't waste time. "I need you to get something to Kevin," she said, her voice all business. "Documents. Ruby's orders. Can you do it?" I didn't like being pulled into their mess, but I said yes. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was that marine instinct to finish what you start. She dropped off a sealed envelope at the estate, and I slipped it into Kevin's mailbox at his new place in the hills. I didn't open it, but I could tell it was heavy, bank statements maybe, or something worse. When I got back to the estate, Ruby was waiting for me. "Did you do it?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. I nodded. She looked relieved, but also terrified, like she'd just lit a fuse. I didn't know what was in those documents, but I had a feeling they were about to blow the Warren family wide open. Quinn was playing a dangerous game, and Ruby was done being his pawn. Kevin was out there licking his wounds, but he wasn't the type to stay down long. And me? I was just the gardener, watching it all unfold, but even I could see this was headed for a reckoning. In my old life, we called it a firefight. Here, in the glitz of Bel Air, it was just another kind of war. The fall of an empire. The Warren estate in Bel Air was quieter than ever by late January, but it wasn't the kind of quiet that feels peaceful. It was the kind you get right before a bomb goes off. I'd seen it before, on the battlefield, in the eyes of men who knew they were about to face consequences. Working the gardens, I kept my head down, pruning the hedges, cleaning the fountain, but I couldn't ignore the storm brewing inside that glass mansion. Kevin hadn't been back since he walked out before Christmas, leaving those presents on the floor like a soldier abandoning his post. Quinn was still playing king, strutting around, hyping Quantum Coin to anyone who'd listen, but his charm was cracking. Ruby was a ghost, slipping in and out of the house, her eyes red like she'd been crying or planning something, or both. And Victoria, poor kid, stopped coming to the garden altogether. I missed her sketches, her questions about the flowers. This family was falling apart, and I was just the gardener, watching it burn. I kept thinking about that envelope I delivered to Kevin for Tessa, Ruby's lawyer friend. Whatever was in it, it had weight. Not just paper, but the kind of secrets that could sink someone. I didn't ask questions, but I'd overheard enough to know Quinn was up to his neck in trouble. His cryptocurrency startup, Quantum Coin, was all smoke and mirrors, big promises, flashy social media posts, but whispers of offshore accounts and cleaned up numbers kept floating around. I'd caught Oliver, Quinn's financial director, arguing with him again one morning while I was mulching the rose beds. "The SEC's sniffing around, Quinn," Oliver said, his voice low and panicked. "Those transfers to the Caymans, they're not invisible. You need to come clean or we're both screwed." Quinn just laughed, that slick, hollow laugh of his. "Relax, Ollie. Kevin's got my back, and the investors are eating it up. Just keep the books pretty." I kept my clippers moving, but my gut told me Quinn was playing with fire, and he didn't even know how close the flames were. Ruby was the one who surprised me. She'd always been quiet, fading into the background like she was afraid to take up space. But one evening, while I was packing up my tools, she came out to the garden, her face set like she'd made a decision. "You ever do something you know is right, but it still feels like you're betraying someone?" she asked, staring at the jacarandas. I leaned on my rake, thinking about my own ghosts. "Every day in the Corps," I said. "Right doesn't always feel good." She nodded, her jaw tight. I gave Tessa everything. Bank statements, texts, proof. Quinn's been lying to all of us. She didn't say more, but she didn't need to. I knew she was talking about the money Kevin had poured into Quantum Coin, millions meant for Victoria's school, their mortgage, their life, siphoned off somewhere else. I just nodded. "You're doing what you have to for your kid." She gave me a small, grateful smile, then walked back inside. I knew then she wasn't just trapped anymore, she was fighting. The explosion came in early February, on a night when Kevin's estate was lit up for one of his rare dinner parties. I was working late, stringing new lights along the patio, when I heard the shouting. Kevin had shown up uninvited, his face like stone. I stayed close to the glass doors, pretending to adjust the wiring, but I could see and hear everything. The dining room was packed. Liam and Sophia, some Quantum Coin investors, Oliver looking like he wanted to bolt. Kevin stood in the doorway, holding a folder that looked a lot like the one I'd delivered. "You're done, Quinn," he said, his voice low but sharp enough to cut glass. "I've got proof. You've been stealing from me, from your own family, funneling my money into offshore accounts while you play Crypto King." The room went dead silent. Quinn laughed, but it was nervous, forced. "What are you talking about, Kev? You're embarrassing yourself." Ruby stood up, her hands trembling but her voice steady. "He's not wrong, Quinn. I found the accounts. The gambling, the yachts, the hotels in Macau. You lied to me, to Victoria, to everyone." She pulled out her phone, showing screenshots, texts between Quinn and Oliver, bank transfers, receipts. The investors started murmuring, their faces hardening. Oliver tried to slip out, but Kevin blocked him. "You're in this too, Oliver. You cooked the books for him." Oliver's eyes darted around like a cornered animal. "I was just following orders," he stammered, but nobody was buying it. Liam, red-faced, tried to intervene. "Now, Kevin, let's not air dirty laundry." But Sophia cut him off, her voice shaking. "I knew," she said, barely audible. "I knew Quinn was hiding money. I didn't say anything because I thought he'd fix it." The room felt like it was collapsing under the weight of her words. I stepped back, my hands still on the lights, but I couldn't look away. It was like watching a grenade go off in slow motion. Kevin turned to his parents, his voice breaking. "You knew? And you still let him call me selfish? Banned me from Christmas because I didn't give him enough?" Liam looked away, ashamed, but Sophia just started crying, her perfect Bel Air facade crumbling. Quinn tried one last play, turning to the investors. "This is a misunderstanding. Quantum Coin's solid, I swear." But one of them, a guy in a sharp suit, stood up. "We're pulling out. All of us. You're done, Warren." Quinn's face went white, and for the first time, he had nothing to say. Ruby took Victoria's hand and walked out, her head high but her eyes wet. Kevin followed, leaving the folder on the table like a final judgment. The investors left in a hurry, and Oliver slunk out, muttering about lawyers. Liam and Sophia sat there, stunned, like they'd just lost everything. Maybe they had. I finished the lights and packed up, my mind racing. I'd seen Betrayal before, but this was next level. Quinn hadn't just stabbed his brother in the back. He'd gutted the whole family for his own greed. As I drove out of Bel Air, I thought about Ruby's courage, Kevin's pain, and Victoria's innocent sketches, now buried under all this mess. I'd seen wars, but this one felt personal. A week later, Ruby called me. I was surprised. She'd never reached out directly. "I'm leaving him," she said, her voice steady. but tired. Victoria and I are moving to San Diego. I need a little help with the first month's rent. I hate asking, but I didn't let her finish. Send me the details. I'll talk to Kevin. I wasn't sure why I offered, but it felt right. Maybe it was for Victoria. Maybe it was because I knew what it was like to start over. I called Kevin, and he didn't hesitate. Whatever she needs, he said. But no more games. I'm done with that. I could hear the steel in his voice. He was rebuilding, setting boundaries for the first time. Quinn didn't go quietly. He showed up at Kevin's estate a few days later, banging on the door while I was cleaning the pool. I stayed out of sight, but I heard him yelling, "You turned her against me, Kev. You and that damn lawyer. You're ruining my life." Kevin didn't yell back. "You did that yourself, Quinn. The SEC's got your accounts. You're done." I didn't know what the SEC was at the time, but I found out soon enough. I'd had enough of Quinn's games, so I made a call to an old Marine buddy who knew someone in financial crimes. I sent him copies of the documents Ruby had given me. Don't ask how I got them. A week later, the news hit. Quinn Warren, crypto wonderkind, arrested for fraud and money laundering. Quantum Coin was finished, its investors out millions, its founder facing years in prison. Ruby and Victoria settled in San Diego. Kevin wired the money for their rent, but he made it clear it was a one-time thing. He was done being the family bank. He sold the Bel Air estate, moved to a smaller place in the hills, and started funding a charity for kids like Victoria, ones caught in the crossfire of their parents' mistakes. Liam and Sophia retreated to their own mansion, cut off from both sons, their perfect life shattered. I saw Sophia once at a grocery store of all places, looking like a shadow of her old self. No makeup, no designer dress, just a woman carrying too much guilt. I finished my last day at the estate before it went on the market. As I packed my tools, I thought about the Warrens, how money had twisted them, how truth had broken them, and how some of them were finding their way back. Quinn was in jail, facing a trial he wouldn't charm his way out of. Ruby was starting over, stronger than I'd ever seen her. Kevin was rebuilding, one careful step at a time. And Victoria, I hope she'd draw her flowers again someday. Me, I was just the gardener, moving on to the next job, the next story. But as I drove out of Bel Air for the last time, I felt something settle in my chest. Justice, maybe. Or just the knowledge that sometimes the truth is enough to end a war. Thanks so much for watching. Your likes, subscriptions, and comments mean the world, and keep these stories coming.